Hello and welcome to the Weekly Scroll Podcast. My name is Ryan.
And I'm Kirby. Hello.
Today, we're going to be going over a game called Bilge from Neon Rot. You may have seen Neon Rot on the show before. They were on here for an interview, and we went over the game BDSM. BDSM. Sure, it is unrelated. Themes, also unrelated, but the letters are the same.
Or the themes could be related.
Well, this one says battles, dragons, swords, and magic.
I was thinking themes of the other BDSM.
Right? I mean, either works. I'm fine with both. You know, that works for me. Anyways, how are you doing tonight, Kirby?
I'm actually doing pretty good. Yeah, got a lot of things like wrapping up right now, so it's been very wonderful, to be honest.
Am I allowed to do a little flashy flash?
Yeah.
Oh,
Flash away,
what
baby.
is this? What is this next to me? Could this be Guild? Could this be?
Certainly could be. I got mine right here.
Yeah. Oh, this is also the Guild Adventure Diary. Oh, what is this? And for those out in podcast world, this is Guild in my hands. It is both the Guild Zine and the Adventure Diary. Check it out on disastertourism.games. Also have the bookmark here and these beautiful character sheets. A whole
They
pad
came out
full
so
of them.
good, didn't they?
They did. They really do look really nice. Yeah, they do. They do look really nice. I love that this is the thing. I know that people did this before, but I know that Stockholm Cartella's really kind of made it blown up, and a lot of people are doing it since then. And I have like literally a pile of just tear off character sheets from different games that I would love to use. But you know, no in-person games right now or ever again. Probably we'll see. But yeah, and at the end we'll talk a little bit more about Kirby's stuff. But tonight we're doing Bilge. I don't really think we have a lot to talk about beforehand. No. Yeah. You ready to just hop right into this?
Let's go. Yeah. Let's rock and roll, baby.
Yeah. So we are going over Bilge. So first impressions for Bilge. What are your thoughts?
Oh man, it's cool. It's a very cool. And I had, as I told you before, when we started talking, I have not played Liminal or even read through it, so I didn't really know have any like context for the game, right?
Right.
But knowing that, even not knowing that, I should say, this game looks like a lot of fun to play.
Yep.
I love the concept of the theme and the setting of it. This giant beast that like is below the sea and comes up once every 3 years to like be pillaged, basically. I just think that's so cool. But yeah. It's a cool game.
Yeah, it's really neat. I think that's that definitely is a highlight, and the art and style generally of what Neon Rot does too. It is we did do Liminal on the show. We did a actual play on the Adventure Archive. You guys can go check that out. That's Lexi Vela and Neon Rot did that together. It's a fun game where you generate rooms as you move through like the back rooms of like the liminal spaces. If you don't know what the back rooms are, just Google the back rooms. It's like a massive shared fiction out there that exists, kind of like the SCP and shit like that.
Yeah.
The game is super fun. This system feels a lot like that game, but gross and with combat. So yeah. So we'll go over that. This game is, I think it's like 56 pages or something like that. It's almost 60 pages. So we are going to do a full game review as opposed to just a zine review, because it does kind of like, I think we roughly do like 30-ish pages. We do the zine review because it's a little less it's 3 metrics instead of 5, so it's, you know, it's got less of an emphasis, or less of some things are weighted differently because of being a shorter format. They don't have things, but this, for the size and everything, I think we decided to do the full thing. So right off the bat, Neon Rot's art, really great first page here. It's very dark. There is the word Bilge across the top, and this kind of like, it's pixelated. All the art throughout the whole thing is very pixel 90s, like old school, like Quake, you know, original Doom style all the way through. So just assume everything is pixelated. In a fun way. I love Neon Rot style. When you did the interview with us, they talked about how they get that style of art. I don't know if they did the same thing for this, but it's really fun. You should check out that episode. But right on the front page also is this kind of, I want to say, sphincter with a creature coming out at you, you know?
Certainly could be what it is.
Yeah, I mean, sphincters are used in here. And it's black, and the cover is this kind of like lightish reddish, I'm gonna say light red pinkishness to it on the front.
But it's supposed to be an Ouroboros, actually.
No, you think so? No, because there's like a creature coming out of you in the front. You see the open mouth.
No,
and, like,
I'm talking about the ring.
Shit.
I think the ring is supposed to be an Ouroboros, not a rectum.
Sphincter. Yeah. Well, no, so sphincters aren't just in your rectum. You actually have quite a few sphincters at your body.
Oh, I know. I know all about them.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. We'll have to ask Neon Rot when he comes on. Hey, buddy, let us know if this is a sphincter on the front or not. Either way, it's a great piece of art. I really love the cover. It's really fantastic. Just had Neon Rot there. And honestly, like the art, the style, the vibe, the pixelated stuff, for the most part through, it's such good vibes. Like I really love that. There are some critiques of some of the use of that throughout that we'll talk about. But we'll see what goes. Kicking to the first page here, there's it's a very fleshy chunk as a background art that I really enjoyed, very pink, and on the front there is this kind of like banner that is used throughout the game. It's black with a red outline and has this very old school pixel squared off font that I think in this section here, as a big, huge thing across the whole page, it says some parts of this journey may seem violent or cruel, I think is a good use of this font. I think we talked about it before stream, though. This is also pretty much the font used as body texture the entire thing, and it becomes difficult to read pretty quickly.
Yeah. It definitely works for the like highlighted text and important or flavor boxes and stuff like that. But yeah, it's we'll talk about it.
I would say I took a bunch of notes because I read this while on break at work.
Oh, nice.
But I would say that our primary, at least my primary critiques throughout the game are mostly like stuff like that. There's some usability issues. There's some like copy editing issues throughout the entire thing. But like as a system and with the vibe and the art and stuff like that, I think it's really fantastic. But I think, and I'll point this out as we go through, one or two passes from a good copy editor would really tighten this thing up into a fantastic project.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
Next page. Do not volunteer if you subscribe to Fear of the Flesh. I love the word flesh. It's a great word.
Yeah, I love flesh.
Yeah. So this is the story, and when we get to this page, this is pretty much the layout through the entire thing. It's got this kind of like pixelated, kind of like fleshy bits around the edges. Everything has this red pixel outline, this white pixel font throughout most of it that, as we said, like it's fine. But there are definitely some issues with some of the letters looking very similar. Sometimes it takes a little bit to see the difference between O's and D's and 5s and S's and stuff. So it's not impossible, but it does make it slightly lower. Oh, and also before we get cracking, we have tweaked the scores on the 5 metrics just a little bit. Not what we score, but kind of how we are describing them. um, to kind of get better in line with how we have been scoring. So instead of art and style, we are now doing art and layout all as one, because it's like the visual part of the layout versus stuff. And instead of layout as a score, because we would always have to say it's not about how the layout looks, it's about like how it's used, we have switched that to usability. So that includes digital tools, readable fonts, like maps that actually make sense, things like that. So we can expand on the usability a little bit more and put layout and all the visual stuff all into one category. So visuals for the most part are in one. So I think most of our issues in this are usability issues. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the story all the way through. As you said, I think this is a really fantastic setting, a vibe for what's going on, and I'm gonna read that for you guys. So, in the turn of the 30th century, humanity began to extend their greed among the stars, harvesting what minerals and life they could. In their travels, they discovered a previously unnoticed moon and perfect order around Neptune. I think that was a miss. I think Uranus would have been a really nice planet. Perfectly hidden by the planet's orbit. The moon, almost entirely made of water, contained large underwater volcanoes, creating a perfect soup to create and sustain life. However, initial rover missions yielded nothing but empty waters and large bone deposits littering the ocean floor. The mystery puzzled scientists for years, and many penal volunteer ships that were sent lost contact with Earth. That is until the discovery of the Leviathan. What was thought to be a large, underwater landmass began to surface, an extremely territorial sea creature the size of America. Every 3 years, it was recorded to surface, apparently looking for a mate that never came. Initial scans of the creature revealed what seemed to be the last remaining life of the moon, flourishing in its guts. Parasitic extraterrestrial crawling through its organs. And even deeper still, the largest deposit of ambergris known to man. Several fleshy caverns of the stuff. From then, the race was on, each trillionaire of Earth sending barely trained penal volunteers in a ship to retrieve as much as they could, their freedom, their reward. Dope. I'm a
Great
fan.
voice over there, Ryan. Loved it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, like I said, I just think I really like the vibe on here. I think that throughout the thing, as I said, some copy editing would be helpful. I think there's just like little tweaks that would just help with readability, like at the turn of the 30th century, I think would be better. There's some commas missing. There's some extra commas throughout the thing. There's some run-on sentences, some weird kind of turns of phrase. And I notice a lot of like tense switching. So sometimes it'll be talking about they, sometimes you, sometimes even in the same sentence. So like I said, I think a good copy editor would fix a lot of those issues throughout the entire thing. But yeah. Leviathan. I do like this, what they do with a lot of the things. So Leviathan is written real big at the top, and then in like a grayish color underneath, it's written in what I assume is like a bunch of different languages. I think that's fantastic. I love the idea that
that was such a cool like header style.
Yeah, it's dope. It makes me really feel like I miss like late 90s sci-fi movies that have like my favorite kind of future shit is broken down future technology, because like right now the technology that exists in our world is beyond what we're aware of. What we get is 10-year-old technology versus what like the government or like the military has. So in the future, the average person is not going to have like a gleaming perfect spaceship. They're probably going to have like a beater spaceship, you know what I mean? So I love like that concept, but I also imagine like a future where there's like 30 billion people on the planet and everything is written in like 10 languages, because like everyone is everywhere, and I'd love that vibe, and that's a vibe I get from this. I don't know if you felt the same way.
Yeah, no, it definitely felt like that dystopian, like massive cyberpunk kind of world where like everybody's just crammed on top of each other and everything is in 50 different languages, you know. That's the vibe I got.
Yeah, well, I love that. It's such a good header style. And there is a great piece of art here, which is the art style throughout the entire thing. It's a very pixelated image. Sometimes the images are hard to discern a little bit, but I like that. I think it feels like a 90s video games where they were like doing whatnot, but this is like a bluish green image. So a little bit more of the lore as we go. The ships would latch on to the creature in the small time period in which it surfaced, and the volunteers would mine into the guts of the beast in a race against time, lighting their way with cheap lamps and hacking at the flesh with metal pipes, kitted out with cheap survival suits made of wet, rotting fabric and scratched metal helmets. Failure to return to the ship before the Leviathan's mating period was up caused it to descend into the impossible depths, the pressure crushing the latched ship to crumple, leaving the men trapped in the belly of the beast to fend off the larger-than-life parasites. That time has come again. The Leviathan has surfaced, and you have traveled there in search of the Gris and your freedom. Maybe this time will be different. I think, and this is the last time I'm really going to harp on it, this sentence, the thing I just read prior to that, that's all one sentence. Mm-hmm. It runs on, and there's some just some, like I said, some weird tense things. So like failure to return to the ship before the Leviathan's mating period was up caused it to descend. So your return to the ship, I don't think it causes the descent. I think it just descends and you need to get there in time. So those are the little things that I think copy editors would fix and just tweak a little bit to help with.
Yeah, and like the font issue here, where it says the pressure causing the latched ship to crumple. I think you said crushing. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure you said crushing. And when I was looking at it, I thought it was a typo. But then I realized it actually was the word causing and not crushing without
causing.
an H.
Yeah. Yeah, because the A, So
the
A
and the R look so similar, or they don't really when they're next to each other. But upon first glance, that's what I thought it said.
Yeah, so like it like we said, there is a usability here. I do love the vibe of the font, but as far as readability, I think there may be just a slightly different one. I don't know. You would be sacrificing vibes for readability, and that's entirely up to what Neon Rot wants to want to do with it. I do think maybe the same kind of vibe could be done with the text that's just slightly more readable. Mm-hmm. And I love at the bottom of each page there is these little bit of flavor text at the bottom, like parasitic volunteers to be terminated is written there at the bottom. Again, like one thing that Neon Rat has in spades is fucking vibes. I'll say that. Like BDSM, like the art, the lore, the kind of like, as I said, like the late 90s kind of like gross stuff that's, their bread and butter it sings to me and I love it. And again, like we have that in spades here. So, one thing that we'll say right here at the beginning, for a 60-page zine, hyperlinks and bookmarks would be great. They are theoretically bookmarks in this zine, but they're just page numbers. Yeah. So that's not like super helpful. If they're already here, just having the names of like what's on those page numbers would be great. So like this, there could be one here on page whatever this is for creating a character right there. That would be super helpful. Once you get towards like 50-ish pages, I really think that you need digital navigation tools, especially since it only exists in digital right now. Yeah. So what you need to play Bilge, a bunch of different dice, pen and pencil, counters, and some volunteers, and a basic deck of cards, minus the jokers. There is a picture of a suit here, it says enhanced black box, which in another bit of lore later you find out is at the bottom of this page. No, that black boxes record everything. So all the trillionaires are watching all of these penal colony volunteers and tracking what's happening with them. And then there's a section here. There's another little line here that says remote mobility locking. So I assume that also means they can just shut your suit off so you can't walk anymore if they don't feel like you're doing a good job. Yeah, and that's so unsurprisingly what a trillionaire would do. You know? I also love that this time the rich people are sending other people into the submarine.
I don't love that.
Sorry, sarcasm there, bud. So creating a volunteer, what are you going to do for that? So when creating a volunteer, decide on a name and backstory, and that's it. As far as all of that, if playing single player, use 2+ volunteers, so you would play with 2 characters by yourself. Why are they here? What crimes brought them to this dark rock? Did they actually volunteer, or were they placed here by a broken penal system? Do they know the other volunteers? I love those, that little bit of flavor there. So there are 3 stats, Flesh, Spike, and Crunch, and you'll roll 2d6 per skill and assign the results to your Flesh, Spike, and Crunch. So these work a lot differently. They're much more gamified than a lot of attributes are used for maybe a little bit more abstraction. So Flesh is used for physical acts such as lifting heavy flesh or prying off a dangerous parasite. Again, a little bit of... Last time I'm really going to harp on it. So I wouldn't use the word flesh to describe what flesh does. Spike used for nerve-related acts, such as finding a weak point to open a door or pinching the correct bit of meat to stop an organ. What that is explained is pretty far down into the game. And then Crunch used for melding acts, such as making a weapon out of bone, or tearing open an internal sphincter.
We love those sphincters.
Who doesn't love a good sphincter?
No, I kind of agree with you on the flesh thing, but then I also don't, because I think that, one, I want to say the way that he delineated these 3 skills and what they do is very interesting, and I like it a lot. Especially Crunch. I think that having in a 3-skill game, one of the skills being something like your ability to like craft, basically, or deconstruct with like whatever is available is just super cool.
Yeah.
I do think that I feel like Flesh works because it is the physical strength, quick movement kind of thing, and Spike works because that my first thing was when it's nerve related acts, Spike being like your heart rate or your blood pressure spiking. That was the way where my brain went when I like, because you're moving quickly and trying to do something really fast. So, but that's, those were my first thoughts upon reading those. Was I felt like they made sense, but I'm not. You're not wrong.
Yeah. So my first sense on Spike was similar, but then when you read what Spike actually is, I was like, that also makes sense. But I do really enjoy that these 3 stats are very game specific. They're not, as I said, they're not like abstracted. It's not just like intelligence or something like that. They're very, you couldn't really take these 3 and put it into a different game. They're very made for this game, and I really enjoy that it's very specific to this. So it shows a lot of like follow through in like the design and stuff. The other 2 things you have are also vigor and fatigue. So roll an amount of d6 equal to your flesh. So to get flesh, let's just do you want to roll 2d6 and tell me what your... You know what, let's just make a character. Why don't you just make a character? Why don't you roll 2d6 3 times? We'll give you some flesh, spike, and crunch. Just use a digital one, brah.
Yeah, I got an envelope here in Sharpie.
Boom. There you go. So Kirby's going to make a character as we go through this. We'll test some of the mechanics as we go too. Someone did comment on one of our last videos that they enjoyed when we did that. So we're going to keep doing that until someone says they hate it. And then we're going to ignore that person and do it anyway. So 2d6 for each of the 3. So what are your 2d6? What's your flesh?
All right. My flesh is 8.
Dope. Your spike.
Sorry. Spike is... Oh, shit. Spike is 4, so I'm not good at that.
And Spiker
is 10.
Dope. Oh, you got some nice crunch there, bud.
Crunch bar.
Yeah. Look at my notes real quick. One of the other things towards the top that I did want to say when we talked about the digital tools, I noticed, especially in all the way through the end, there is no table of contents. So
I actually did not notice that. But yeah, you're right.
I think once you hit like 60 pages, I think a table of contents would be really helpful. And then hyperlink it. So, going on to vigor and fatigue, you roll an amount of d6 equal to your flesh. So you got an 8 for flesh, right? So you roll 8d6.
Yeah, I'm just gonna do this in the chat because I only have one d6 in my hand right now. Roll. Wait, what is it? Is it command roll?
I believe it's just you can only roll 1d6 at a time.
D86.
And it's exclamation point d6.
Yeah. There we go. 12.
You can't roll 8d6. You can roll 1d6 at a time. That's how the bot works.
Oh shit, my bad. Okay, I was thought you were talking about my 1d6. See, I'm just not paying attention, man. All right, let's see. I got 2, 5, 3. That's 10. 6, 4, 20. 6, 2, 28. 1 and 6. That's 35.
So 35 is your total?
That's my total.
35 on 86. So times the result by 10.
So 350.
So you get 350, and then split the total number any way you'd like between vigor and fatigue. Okay. So fatigue is lost 1 per room moved into. So every time you move into a room, you lose 1 fatigue. Vigor is lost in other more visceral ways, usually combat and getting injured and stuff. So it's important. This is a game that I think you're going to play once, realize that you fucked it up super bad, go back and be like, now I understand a little bit better, which is fine. I like that. I really enjoy that. So you'll split it between fatigue, moving from room to room, and vigor as, probably your kind of like quote unquote HP-ish stuff. If your vigor falls to 0, you are killed and must shred your volunteer card. If your fatigue falls to 0, you are knocked unconscious and must be dragged by another player to a safe rest area at the cost of 2 fatigue instead of 1 per room moved for that player, or you are killed. Unconscious enemies are able to make a rest action here. So if you don't die when you lose all your fatigue, you just have to be dragged along or left to die. And if to be dragged along, it double fatigues the person dragging you. If all players are knocked unconscious, you are killed and must shred your volunteer cards. You're ready to start exploring. Your character will most likely change drastically as you play. Be prepared for this. So those are your core stats: flesh, spike, crunch, vigor, and fatigue. I like it. Cool little piece of art here at the bottom, and there is some more writing. It says, if parasitic embryo replaces a volunteer's heart or other important organ, prioritize the safe capture of the foreign body for further study. Love that. I fucking love that. The little extra lore bits at the bottom are so important not to skip over. All right, so Parasite. It has the same kind of header as Leviathan, big red at the top, all the different languages right underneath it. Again, love that, really fantastic. All right, so sometimes during your exploration, so I'm not gonna read this word for word. As you go through the Leviathan, you will find small parasites, and they will lend their power to you, enhancing you. So you are able to actually take parasites into your body, and once they are part of you, they are part of you. They are important as your lungs or liver, it says. Upon coming across these parasites, squirming in the fleshy walls or wriggling within a defeated foe, you can choose to accept them into your body, and accepting them increases your parasitic purity by 10% each time you have add one of these enhancements. As you explore, you'll come across parachecks that will actually determine your parasitic purity. And depending on that, a sphincter, enemy, or item will react differently to you. As opposed to if you are a pure human, recognizing and accepting you as part of the system because you have enough parasite making up your body. I love that. I think that's fucking fantastic.
I think it's really cool. Very cool.
Yeah. If a volunteer is 90% parasitic purity, enemies will not attack them even if they are the target. They are completely ignored in battle because they're just seen as part of the system. However, a volunteer at 90% parasitic purity takes 1 vigor damage for each room moved into, as well as 1 fatigue as the multitude of parasites drains their life. Chef's kiss. Love that. Volunteers can have multiples of the same parasite, but the effects do not stack. Then why? I guess there are some things that are only like once per rest, so you could have two so that you could use it twice. Yeah. So the effects don't stack, but I assume like usages should be able to use multiples. There's one that like causes like a bright flash. If you had two of those, I assume you'd be able to do two bright flashes, or at least that's what I would do.
Yeah, number one gives you healing, so that's yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it seems like maybe things that like I'm trying to think of. There must be somewhere like the effects are stackable, and so it doesn't. I'm sure it was an edge case, and that's why they threw it in there. If a volunteer becomes 100% parasite, they lose themselves into Leviathan, their mind warped by worms and other creatures, and they become an enemy with vigor equal to flesh, resilience equal to spike, and attack equal to crunch. So you become a bad guy, and it even tells you how you become a bad guy. Love that. Another little lore drop here. Can you keep your humanity? Question mark. Probably not. There's a list here of 10 parasites. I'm not going to read through all 10. Did any of them really stand out to you as super fun?
I'm going to roll for it. I rolled a 3. Eye slug. Replaces the left eye with a large slug. When revealing a room, draw 2, then discard 1. Interesting.
I really like that.
Little the scrying slug. I like it.
Yeah. It's really neat. I think this does. So me and Hunter. Okay, so question, and I guess I could read your games and do this. Me and Hunter think differently about this. And I never remember which one I am until he tells me, and then I'm like, no, I like the other one. Are you a rules first and then character creation in a zine or a game, or are you a character creation first and then rules?
Good question. For Guild, I think I did like a little tidbit of lore in the beginning and then just dove into character creation because of the way I wanted to write it. For some of the other ones I've done, I feel like I'm usually character first but I usually try and I'm trying to remember like how I've done them in the past. Like I feel like I've tried to like write the game with the character creation and not like break it into sections. I don't know if that's as apparent in Guild as maybe I would have wanted it to be. It's possible that it is from someone else's perspective, but because it's kind of how it is written really is like this is who you start as and you move to the end, and then this is what you do at the end. Like, yeah.
Right.
But yeah.
I think that what I really like is if I enjoy character creation being near the top because like that's you, and it's good to get a sense of like who you are as you read through it and everything like that. And this is really just the first read, because once you read it through it once, like you can just go to the sections that you want. But I like there being like a little bit of like a quick start at the beginning that at least gives you a somewhat of an understanding of what the rules are, so that when you build your character, you kind of understand a little bit more of like why some things are more important than the other.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting.
Yes, you're right. That is what I did in Guild actually, because I have the core mechanic is before the rest.
Right.
So I think I would be on your side with this.
Yeah. The reason I bring that up is because it says when revealing a room, draw 2, then discard 1.
Yeah.
We haven't really discussed what that means at all yet.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason I bring it up at all. So it's just interesting, but it's also hard to separate it all in such a completely different way. So it's just that's more of just like an interesting thing when writing a game than like any kind of critique at all. It's hard to kind of get all the things you need before you get to the other things, and you'll often find like you write something and then it has to be explained later just for the way, because pages go this way. It's not like in the same space and time because we don't live in a fourth dimension. What is one of the ones? There's some other really cool ones that I liked a lot. I like
the compass worm is cool too.
Mm-hmm.
The brain worm that vibrates based on cardinal direction. When moving to another room, look at the top 4 rooms and rearrange them in any order. But also another good example of what the fuck does that even mean? Right.
Heart Spider #1 is really fun too, just because Heart Spider once per 5 rooms pumps the volunteer full of extra blood, healing 2d6 vigor. Love that.
Perfect.
Love that. I also, there's already, and this is just a me thing, again, not really a big critique. There's already red highlighted stuff in the book. I often will look at this and think, oh, green means good for me, red means bad for other people. But everything that has like a d6 is all green throughout. So whether it's damage or healing to yourself, it's all green. You could easily just switch like this extra d6 damage to somebody else to like a red, you know, and that would just be a little helpful because you could tell. All right, and then we get to exploring, which, since it's the very next page, again, that previous thing wasn't a critique as much as just a, as you write a zine, I can only imagine it's not easy to make sure it all makes sense in the right order. Exploring, and it says black boxes record all info. This is that little bit from before where you saw the picture that said black boxes are attached to your suit. So, moving. When in an area, you may move to a new area, both explored or not, at the cost of 1 fatigue per moving volunteer. You may choose to move as a group of any number of volunteers. If you do, you must choose a lead volunteer, and any triggered actions from moving to a new area that say you relate only to the lead volunteer unless stated otherwise. Okay, real quick, because this is a core mechanic. Why would you do that then? Kirby looks baffled for those in
I'm just rereading
land.
it. I'm just rereading it to see if I can figure that out.
Right. So basically it says like you can move from area to area, and every time you do, you take 1 fatigue, but you can choose to move as a group with a leader, and any like targeting that would happen as you move into a new room, like a creature targeting the lead volunteer or effect taking place on the lead volunteer, would only affect that one person who decided to be a leader. But it says if you may move as a group and choose a leader. If you're always going to be the first person to do that, why would you? But if you need to have someone who's the lead volunteer, you shouldn't say may, you know? So like what?
I'm trying to see if what is happening here is an option to not take 1 fatigue per volunteer moving.
See, that's what I'm curious about, right? Like
you can do this and everybody just takes 1 fatigue, or you move as a group and have a leader, and the leader takes the brunt of whatever the hell happens in the room when you enter. Which, if that is the case for the rules, I think that's a good balance, a good binary choice there for a playstyle. But
I agree and disagree, just in the fact that like one of the core things is like you take fatigue damage every time you go into another room. And that's one of the core like pools of resources you have is fatigue and vigor. If you can always pick a leader and move as a group, then the concept of fatigue as a resource pool becomes obsolete, because you never would be spending fatigue to go from room to room, unless like there's other things that like would cause you to, because you have like a parasite or something like that. But like I just think that needs to be explained one way or the other. Either you need to have a volunteer, or because nowhere in it does it say that you then don't reduce fatigue. And then if you don't need to have a volunteer and everyone loses fatigue anyway, then why would anyone be the lead knowing that they would take on the brunt of the harm just for themselves? Because the other thing too is like you're a penal colony volunteer, which means you are a prisoner trapped up somewhere with a group of other prisoners just trying to survive in the belly of a giant alien leviathan. I don't think that many people are going to be like, you know what, I have it in my heart to do this kind of thing for all of my people and be the one that lead. You know what I mean? Like, so I just think that
there's something there for like as far as that binary choice goes, but I think that you're right that it doesn't really lore wise make really much sense, but also mechanically speaking, it almost feels like why would you choose? Like I think it just needs an addendum to like, you can do this X many times, or the lead volunteer will always take 2 fatigue plus this, or something like that. But then again, you'd have the lore issue where you're like, why would they even do this in the first place? But that's more of a.
But I mean, even mechanically, I'm not even worried about the lore. Even mechanically, like, you're always going to take the brunt. Why would you be the lead? So I think that needs to be expanded on just a little bit. I think there needs to be like you may choose to do this. Why would you? Like, there needs to be like a mechanical reason why you would choose to do that. Like, are you not getting the fatigue, or do you have to do it because that's a mechanic you want in the game? I think that one way or another, I think that specific, the moving thing, since it's literally like pretty much the core mechanic of the game is moving from room to room, needs to be expanded on just like a little bit more. What's next? Each intestine between an area is closed by a large sphincter. These sphincters act as doors to other areas, and they're sometimes locked because the Leviathan is tensing. And then with the deck of cards, the cards are used to determine the area you come across as you map the Leviathan. Before play, you shuffle a 52 card deck. It said before, no jokers. When moving to an unexplored area of the body, draw from the deck and check the card value and suit with the area guide as you move into the area. Cards are discarded after being drawn. If there's no cards left, reshuffle the discard pile and start again. And sometimes something is triggered as you move into a new area. Resolve these before doing any actions within the area. So that is the core mechanic of the game, is the exploration. So it's good to have it near the top, and it is just like page 7. I know it feels like we're like 30 pages in, but we're only 7 pages in.
I was just thinking though how much I would have liked to have I mean, really, even just that. Like, why am I like, when I first cracked this open and was reading like, what do you need to play? And it's only 2 pages before this or whatever. I still was like, I need a lot of shit to play this game. Like, I need like 5-6 different dice. I need a roll of coins. Why do I need a roll of coins? I need, I need a 52 card deck. Like, that, it just felt like a lot without any, I guess, any explanation. So I feel like just that, like, the cards represent the rooms in the thing, and you blah blah blah. That's it. And then see page blah blah whatever for that kind of thing.
That's what I was saying. Like, just a little bit of a primer right at the beginning. I think there could be one more spread in here, and there's a later spread that can be completely deleted, so you won't even add to the page count. That would have a table of contents and then just a brief rundown that says you will be rolling dice to make checks, to open sphincters or whatever. You'll be turning cards to randomly determine what rooms you go into, blah, blah, blah. Just like a quick, just narrative, not mechanical rundown of like what you're actually doing. And then when you jump into character creation right off the bat, you have an understanding. Okay, I know why I'm making checks. I know why my vigor is important. I know why my fatigue is important. I just think like that's a really nice thing to have right at the beginning. Like, this is what you're doing and why you're doing it. Boom. Now let's get into mechanics. Would be a nice spread to have with the table of contents. Blah. So mapping. Before starting play, take a piece of paper, draw a large row of 4 fleshy squares at the top of the page. Mark any of these squares as the starting area. Doodle anything you might see there, like veins and organs and stuff, and that's your starting area. I also think what would be great, because the layout is so great on here, the art is so great on here, and there is a character sheet later. It would also be really nice to have a exploration sheet. If it's 4 fleshy squares at the top, just throw one in here so I can print one out or whatever. And because I think at Liminal they just have like a grid, but even that, like, they at least have that in the PDF, so it's nice to have. And with their art style, having like this kind of like pixelated fleshy chunks for like your 4 squares at the top, and then even if it's just like plain boxes for the rest, would be such a good vibe to be able to print out, and I would love to be able to like have that on a sheet. The edge of every square represents a long winding intestine to a new area. Any volunteer wishes to explore past the edge, just tape another page to it. You should make the map as detailed as possible, both visually and with notes, because if all of your people die, you're not the only one sending people here. There are multiple trillionaires sending tons of people here to explore this. Other people can use your map. You can use your map later, so both in the lore and out of the lore, the map is important to have. It is a mapping game, so that's important. There's a little section here that has a map key. There's a spike point, an enemy, a locked sphincter, impossible gap, a safe area, and a flume. Talk about flume in a second. But there are special areas. The starting area, That's where you start. A safe area where it's safe. In this room, all players may make a rest action at once, starting a fire for warmth and sleep or tell stories. And you heal D6 plus flesh vigor and your fatigue to full at the cost of increasing the Leviathan's discomfort by 1 per rest. We'll get to Leviathan discomfort. And then flumes. These tubes connect areas of the Leviathan via a series of vacuum-powered fleshy chutes. Each flume connects to each other and may be moved between at the cost of 1 fatigue as I'm moving into an adjacent area. So it's like chutes and ladders. You can just like shoot down. I will say, as someone who does work in the medical field, I love the use of like sphincters and stomas and all the rest of this. I will say though, there is a good word that could be used here medically as opposed to flume, and it is fistula. I think a fistula here would be a good word. Is like
I would love to fistula that sphincter. For sure.
But fistulas can form between 2 areas they shouldn't, or even between 2 like organs in the body where like something will happen and it'll burrow through. So fistula as a thing between both would be fun. Flume is fine. I just love the word fistula. So they would also work here and have a little bit more of that like gross body horror mixed into it.
Yeah.
So Leviathan discomfort. For there is no folly of the beast of the stars, which is not infinitely outdone by the madness of men. Love that. Great. As you fail a check involving your environment, the Leviathan around you will start to become aware of the intruders, clenching and twisting its insides. Which check this is determined by the area you are in. When prompted, increase this tracker by 1 point. I will say, in a second I'll say it. Each 2 points filled changes how areas are generated as you discover them, the guts of the creature changing as it twists and turns. Sometimes, these next 2 letters, I had no fucking clue what it said. I had to read the whole page and then just be like, okay. It just says LD. Locks, so sometimes LD locks, opening releases more parasites. It does not change areas already explored. If all 10 points are filled, switch to the angered Leviathan areas. So I did not. So again, this is the font issue. I could not tell whether that was LD or LO or like what it was describing at all. It took me reading it and getting context. There is no point where it says LD is Leviathan discomfort.
Yeah.
I understand that now, but Leviathan discomfort as a like keyword isn't really made clear. I really think that this would be made massively more clear if at the top paragraph they say is determined by the area you are in. When prompted, increase this tracker by 1 point. It could really just say, and there's enough room on the line, increase Leviathan discomfort tracker by 1 point. And it could even say Leviathan discomfort parentheses LD tracker by 1 point. And they would make it super easy. You could even make LD red, like give a little bold throughout the thing so that that's there. But there's no explainer of what LD is, and you can eventually read it in context. But that was one of the parts. That is when I was kind of bugged a little bit by the font all the way through. When I got to that, I was like, okay, this is kind of fucking annoying. Like, it would be a lot easier if that was a little bit more legible. But I think straight up, like, if you're going to have a keyword with a keyword, like, abbreviation, you should have the keyword with the abbreviation attached to it at some point at the top, so it becomes easier to read as you go through. But basically, as you fuck around inside the Leviathan, it starts to feel you inside of it, and as the discomfort caused by you increases, things will change inside Leviathan. Sometimes doors will open, sometimes doors will close, but once you get the Leviathan discomfort tracker up to 10 points, you then change how the game is played. Only these areas will be generated by exploring from this point on, and they are all extremely hostile. That is the Leviathan discomfort areas. Some sphincters may also now be open or locked as the insides of the Leviathan churn in anger, intestines writhing, and the organs working in overdrive. The Leviathan is getting ready to descend back into the depths. That is one thing that I thought was really interesting, is that it rises every 3 years, but you messing around inside of it can cause it to descend prior to when it would want to. After this is triggered, the Leviathan discomfort may increase by another 10 points. Should be period. However, on the final point, the Leviathan dives beneath the surface, the pressure crushing the ship instantly. You and the rest of the volunteers are trapped here, and your story is over. Thankfully, your mapping systems are constantly broadcasting back to Earth via the ship, and the next set may attempt entry from the same point of the Leviathan. Note, 10 plus refers to if the LD has hit 10 yet, even if it has gone below after. So a couple of things here, and a question I'll come back to later if I remember, and I just want to make sure I'm checking my notes here to see if there's anything that came up before this. So we talked about index, we talked about fistula, we talked about the LD explanation. So basically you have a Leviathan discomfort tracker, and as you fuck around inside the Leviathan, you can increase its discomfort. Once you hit 10, the game changes to Leviathan discomfort style gaming, which means from that point on everything is more difficult for you. It does say here at the bottom though, once you increase it to another 10 points, on that final 10th point it dives down under, your ship is crushed, and you are stuck inside the Leviathan with no way to escape. But I do, if I remember correctly, there's a thing later that once it hits the final point, you start doing rolls too. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between, I think, that and a later rule, but remind me when we get there. Okay. So there's a whole page here that talks about, it is the 10 things that happen. Oh yeah, here it is, right here at the bottom. Okay, so as we go through, the Leviathan is slumbering. It doesn't matter. Once you hit the one on the, once you hit 1, it says the great bellows echo around its guts. The beast is waking. All right, 2. Level 2 LDs are unlocked. 3, the walls squirm. 4, level 4 LD doors are unlocked. On the odd numbers, cool little lore bits of it getting irritated, and on the even numbers, that level of doors unlocked. So level 6 LD locks open, level 8 LD locks open, and then at 10 it says the Leviathan has begun to submerge. Upon entering a room, roll a d20. If the result is above the current LD, decrease it by 1. If the LD reaches 0, the Leviathan descends and your ship is destroyed. Between those two pages, first, I will also say I don't like the use of this like D6 that goes up to D10.
It was very confusing.
It's confusing because you feel like you should roll on it, but you're not rolling on this. This is levels. I think numbers would have been much less confusing here. I don't see a reason why this is like the only one that has dice attached to it, since you are rolling D6s. Since there are now these dice here, my brain automatically went to, oh, if I roll a D3, you're not rolling for this. This is the discomfort you are causing. So I think switching that to numbers would be just a necessary change. But, so again, tell me if I'm just dumb reading this. Above it says, after this is triggered, the LD may increase another 10 points. So after you hit the Leviathan discomfort, it can be increased by another 10. However, on the final point, the Leviathan dives beneath the surface. Okay? And then we hit this down here, which I assume is the increase in points. You get to 4, you get to 5, you get to 6, you get to 7, you get to 8, you get to 9. Once you get to 10, the Leviathan has begun to submerge. Upon entering a room, roll a d20. If the result is above the current LD, decrease it by 1. If the LD reaches 0, the Leviathan descends and your ship is destroyed. So are you counting up to 10 and then counting back down to 0?
I think so. I'm just going back and forth here between that, because note 10 plus refers to if the LD has hit 10 yet, even if it has gone below after.
Right. So like this is a section that I was just a little bit unclear on, is like exactly what happens when we hit the LD. What happens when you get to 10? Are you then going back down to 1? Like that's my only issue here, is that if the whole thing is this 10, so the 10 also doesn't really have any dots on it, right? So is that the core for this whole thing, and should that be at the top then?
I'm looking at the top here. the top of the previous page, page 9. I'm just like rereading it with more context to try and see if I can figure this out. So when it happens, you will, or you fail a check involving the environment, the Leviathan will become discomforted, and you will increase the tracker by 1 point. Every 2 points determines blah blah blah. If all 10 points are filled, the angered switch to angered Leviathan areas. Right. So okay. Then after that, you fill it another 10 points. And I think on that, at that point is when the D20 rolls start. That's how it was reading to me.
Right. But then, so there's, as I said before, there's a section here that says the LD may increase another 10, but on the final point, it dives beneath the surface. But then we get to a section on here. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. But on 10, now it says the Leviathan has begun to submerge. You do the D20 rolls. If the result is above the current LD, you decrease it by 1. And if the LD reaches 0, the Leviathan descends. So you're getting to 10, then you get to another 10, then you're doing D20 rolls until you hit 0.
Okay, yeah, okay, sorry if I repeated anything you said. I was obviously not in the room.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But the okay, that does actually start to make a little bit of sense to me, because lore story wise, because as the Leviathan is descending, it's going to be feeling less discomfort because it's returning to where it lives, basically, right?
But it says here at the bottom, once it reaches 0, it then descends and your ship is destroyed. But above, it says once you hit the last point, then it descends and your ship is destroyed.
I feel like that might just be a writing thing, because it literally says the Leviathan begins to submerge, and then at the end of it, it says the Leviathan descends. So, like, I feel like maybe it's just written. There's just a little bit of writing. Like, the words might need to be changed to really more clearly articulate what's happening here. But I think that this is triggering it, and then we count down to 1, and then the Leviathan drops. Like, I think maybe it's like at 10. It's preparing to, you can feel the thing shifting and it's getting ready to descend, but then at 0 is when it does. I think that's kind of what it's saying.
So what it sounds like we're saying is you can get to 10, and then you switch to Angry Leviathan mode. Then you get to another 10, and then it starts to submerge because it's angry, and then you switch to the D20 rolls, and once you hit 0, it fully dives, is what it sounds like. The mechanics of the LDR.
That's what I'm understanding, and I'll be honest, it is actually very cool.
I think it's great. I just think
the system here is very cool, but yeah, it's definitely a little bit confusing in trying to figure out the method and like the order and such.
Yeah, that's what that's how I'm reading it, but I do think even just like one line or two that just like has like a bit of an explainer at the bottom that just says like, so you do ABC, you know what I mean? You do this, you do this, you do this. Yeah. That's how it works. Would be extraordinarily helpful, or even like right off the bat, you could say like, this is how it works. And then here, let me explain how it fully works, because that is a lot of parsing to get to count to 10 again, and then start doing D20 rolls until you get to 0. You know what I mean? So, yeah. That I think could use a little bit of explanation. Again, mechanic wise, all the way through this, I think it's fucking fantastic, but I think some of the writing needs to be a little bit more clear in some of that, because I feel like we're not dumb people. But
I mean, I am, but
right.
I mean, I might have honestly, I might have just done it to 20, and then make a 20 plus table for the like the getting ready to submerge thing, because you're using a D20 already, right, to make these final rolls. So why not just have like 10, 1 through 0 through 10 is like the normal LD,
11 through 20 is the angry Leviathan, and at 20 you start rolling a d20, and at 30 you're dead. Like that's I would have just kept counting up. Like just I think I kind of understand because it's kind of like the submerge I think that's kind of maybe where his brain was like, the actual
I think it makes sense.
process. But
I think it makes sense, but I think going up to 20 and then counting down would make sense because like with the discomfort you tick up by a point, but so say that you roll let's say you go into a room and you roll a d20. If the result is above the current LD, decrease it by 1. So if your LD is at 18, you have to roll a 19 or 20 to decrease it by 1, right?
Yeah.
But then that's also when you think about that, right? If the result is above the current LD, okay, so you're not at 20. The point is like you get to 10, then you get to 10 again. Because if you were at 20 and you had to roll above to reduce it by 1, it would be impossible. You'd have to roll a 20 and think of how many rolls you would get before D20. So it would have to be 10 and then 10 again. And then, but I wouldn't mind like if it was like on a sheet, I would have 10, right, in like black. Then I would have like 10 boxes in red, and then you know what I mean. Once you hit to that, you're at 10 again, and then when you roll your d20. So, but that means you have at least minimum if you roll above a 10 rolls in a row. That's 10 more rooms minimum that you can explore before you could possibly even get to 0. And the odds of rolling above every single time. So you're probably going to get like 15 more rooms before you're just fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe I mean, mechanically speaking, I feel like maybe it works. Maybe it works.
I'm fine with the mechanics. I think the explanation needs to be a little bit more. I will say this next page I love and should be way higher. There is a big piece of art here of ambergris. If you don't know what ambergris is, hit the Googles. But basically, whales like build up gunk. Yeah, they build up gunk on stuff. I think often in whales, it's like the beaks of squids, and it just like coats it in this goop. And people pay a lot of money for it. It's basically it's like it's a goopy whale pearl that I think people eat and stuff. People are weird.
I'm pretty sure it's used in like perfume and skincare stuff too.
Yeah, it's used for a bunch of stuff because humans are fucking weird and love using the gunk of other things.
Beaver buttholes for blueberries.
All right. You seek one thing within these twisted, beating halls, the ambergris. Somewhere deep within the beast, your sensors picked it up. If you can find it and bring it back to the starting area, you will be welcomed back and paid in your freedom. With your freedom. Failure to present the grease to the sensors of your ship will not activate its thrusters. A horrific and fleshy death upon this moon awaits you. And there's a big bar that says ambergris underneath it. I think this should be way at the top. Like way at the top. This is the whole reason you're fucking doing this shit.
Page 1.
Yeah. And it's a great piece of art too. I love this. It's just a golden chunk of stuff. It almost looks like a geyser, but it's just it's a chunk of goop. All right. So battles. So what separates this a little bit from Liminal, I think, is there is no, I mean, a lot of things, but one of the main things in the kind of mapping style of using a resource to move from room to room is you actually fight stuff in this one, which is fun and interesting. Even though you're weak as fuck and basically all you have is a wrench, you can still fight. So battles, sometimes you come across hostile enemies. They'll be listed within an area generator created by the check that you do. When it happens, you either roll for the enemy or spawn the enemy listed. And as I said, you are equipped with just a simple wrench used to repair your ship. If you enter an enemy with an area with an enemy, or enemy enters an area with you, the battle begins. All players attack first, and each, in turn, roll d6 equal to their crunch against an enemy within the room. So your crunch skill is your fight skill. Most of the time. Reduce that amount by the resilience of the enemy. Any value over this amount reduces the enemy's vigor. If an enemy's vigor drops to 0, it is destroyed by the player. One thing I think would also be really helpful in this is some examples of play. Because if you did all the exploration rooms and then had a page where you had people like going through, all of those questions would be answered super easily. And then same thing with the battle here. I don't think this is really complicated, but it's always nice to have combat as an example of play, because it's super helpful. So again, battle starts, players go first, you roll a d6 equal to crunch against an enemy. That amount is reduced by the resilience, and any overage reduces enemies' vigor. When they hit 0, they dead. When you hit 0, you dead. After all players attack, all remaining enemies attack equal to their attack stat. So they just attack equal to attack. So if their attack is 20, they just hit for 20, right? At volunteers dictated by their target. So target isn't listed as a keyword here, but it's kind of a keyword in that enemies specifically target things. So sometimes an enemy will target, and we'll get to this later when we get to the enemies. Sometimes it will target the highest crunch character, or the highest flesh character, or the highest vigor character. So they are there's kind of like an AI built into the bad guys. If there's a draw, the volunteers decide who takes the attack. The defending player then rolls an amount of d6 equal to their flesh skill and reduces the attack total by that total, and any value over is gone to the player's vigor, right? And the battle continues until you win or lose. If a player wishes, they may escape to an adjacent explored area. Enemies do not follow, but will deal d20 vigor damage to any player that leaves per enemy still alive. I love this mechanic because it's brutal, but also there is something later that lessens it. There is a parasite you can get that gives you bonus speed that lets you escape without taking that damage. I love when something is like really hard, but you can find something to make it easier. I really enjoy it. It's kind of got, it feels to me like a kind of a Metroidvania thing, where it's just like, this really sucks for you, but get the ability and it sucks less for you.
Yeah.
So to wrap up what combat does, right? You enter combat, players go first, roll a d6 equal to crunch. So what's your crunch score? You got a shitload of crunch, right?
Yeah, it's 10.
So you're rolling 10d6 to fight bad guys. That's a big old wrench you got. You got one of those, like the fucking, everyone else has got like the little guys. You got the giant pipe wrench. So you do got that fatty. So that amount is reduced by the enemy's vigor, and then they die when they hit 0. But when you're being attacked, the attack stat is used to attack you, and you're rolling a d6 equal to your flesh to defend. So what's your flesh?
8.
So you're rolling 8d6 to defend against attack. So you're combat heavy. Your spike sucks, but you're combat heavy. So that's great. So these next 2 pages, completely unnecessary in my opinion. I don't know why they're here. They are a list of 10 known enemies, and it gives you the stats, and then it gives you the drops. The stats are in white, the drops are in red, and they're listed in an interesting way. They use tarot card, like major arcana cards, like Chariot, Hermit, Lovers, the Hanged Man, Star, and I love the explanations for each of those because they obviously use them as a inspiration for it. It's interesting though that you're using a deck of cards, but then using a different style of a deck of cards to name the enemies. It doesn't bother me. It's just interesting. But right after that, one thing at the bottom of the second page has that little bit of lore thing and says the parasites, as the previous explorers call them, are not in fact feeding off the beast itself, more each other. They create a perfect ecosystem within the whale, as we do with our own Leviathan, Mother Earth. I mean, we don't, I mean, I get that we're not doing that to ours. We're fucking our ecosystem up, but I get the vibe. But immediately after, though, that spread that explains the bad guy, all their stats and their drops, there are pages for every one of those with a picture, and the pictures are dope, that then also gives the exact same information, the enemy's name, all of their stats, and the drops. So I don't see any reason whatsoever that the pages above the whole spread explaining all 10 bad guys and all the information you need, when for the very next like 10 pages, you get all of the same information, but with a picture.
Yeah, I totally agree. I kind of wish that I mean, I don't want to say that like you shouldn't have included the art, because the art is really good. I feel like you could have doubled this up, put 2 on each page, so 4 per spread, and then just cut those 2 pages out completely, and you would have cut down on the page count too. Because of how little, not that that matters, but because of how little text is on each page, I feel like you could have fit a lot more information on. And as far as the tarot thing, I don't have a problem with it, but I don't, and I understand the inspirational kind of aspect to the titles and then the descriptions, but I would have just tried to come up with names for them myself, because I was confused at first when I first flipped through this book. Like I wasn't reading it. I was just kind of like skimming it, and I was like trying to get the vibe for the book before I went and read it. I was like, wait, am I using tarot cards for this now? Like what's, because I saw all the major arcana, and then right after that we get into the suits, and I'm like, well, I'm so confused. What? And then I had to scroll to the top to see if I missed something about the suits or the deck of cards. So that would be my only critique, but that's more of just a first glance running through this, figuring out what, you know. But yeah,
I don't disagree with you. I do think there's a smidge of a disconnect. First, I do not mind at all that there is a piece of art and only a little information on each one.
I don't either.
I think it's fantastic, because I think the art really stands out for the vibes of the zine in this, since he does one for every single page and they're all fucking dope as shit. I just think if you're already going to do that, which you already did a shitload of work for the art, it's fully unnecessary, because it's not a roll table. It's just a list of enemies. So you don't need the quick reference list at the top when you have the ones underneath that also explain it all. I guess if it's used as like an enemy reference page for later, you could do that. But again, it just feels unnecessary to use a whole spread for information you're literally also giving in the next page. Like you don't often read a bestiary that has explanation of all the beasts first, and then gives you explanation again of all the beasts with pictures. Like if it was just a list of like chariot, hermit, lovers, da 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 da, fine. You don't need 2 page spreads for that. I do, as you say that though, about, so real quick, let me talk through like chariot, for example, or even like lovers is a really good one. So lovers, vigor 30, resilience 15, attack 20. So you got to get 30 over the resilience, which is 15, and then it attacks for 20 each time. It targets the highest flesh volunteer, right? So that is the stats and the target, and then it says what were previously 2 separate volunteers are now fused by a mass of parasites, linking them together in an internal embrace as the crazed couple stagger and slash. So clear, like lovers had a clear inspiration for the bad guy. Same thing with the Hanged Man. This is one of my favorite ones. It is a volunteer, the bottom half lost to the beast. It crawls along the roof of the Leviathan's guts via long tendrils, kept alive by the parasites growing from its back. So it literally like creeps along the ceiling, held on by like tendrils and parasites. So it's literally hanging down. The art is fantastic. So I get the Hanged Man aspect of it. I don't disagree with you, though, in that having dice and then having decks of cards and using the card for generators, and since a deck of cards is like eventually is based on tarot, that's how we get to the suits and stuff we have now through delineations and stuff. Using the tarot is a weird kind of choice to use, because like you said, wait, am I using, because one of the first things I honestly did when I read this, I was like, wait a second, chariot is not major arcana number 1, you know? Yeah. And then I was like, I know death is like number 13. Why do I know that? Tokyo Ghoul. So like, and also, I mean, the Moon Tarot decks I have, but like, it is weird kind of to choose major arcana names to assign them different numbers than what the major arcana is. But also, I do think it, more than anything, I think it takes away from the lore a little bit. I think
That's
it's okay
what I
to
was
be
thinking
completely
about the names. Yeah.
because you go from this kind of like gross 90s like vibe, like space body horror, into this kind of occult aspect, which, like you said, I think it does cause a little bit of disconnect. I think it being called some other weird, gross flesh name or something would keep it more into the vibes. So I agree. I think that I would get rid of this spread entirely on pages 13 and 14. I would replace that with an earlier spread of the table of contents and brief explanation of the game. I would keep all of the art, and I'd probably rename the creatures to things that are more lore kind of specific, because I can't imagine that like the penal volunteers of the future sent here by trillionaires with nothing but wrenches and hopes and dreams are naming the bad guys they find after like tarot major arcana.
Especially if everything's like essentially live streamed, you know, like not really, but to some degree. I feel like people would have had names for these things at some point.
Yeah, and they would, I mean, and people overall, they're gonna like, people name things like, oh, this guy slashes stuff, he's a slasher, you know what I mean? Like that is and where is he at? Oh, all right, he's the Bay Area slasher. Like people are gonna be like, oh, that's like the bile duct, you know, puncher, you know, like
the ceiling crawling half body.
Yeah, you know, that's yeah, I think that would help with the vibes a little bit. I like it. I almost think it's a little bit too elevated, you know what I mean? Like I feel like there's almost a little bit too smart, I think, in this part, because I do enjoy it, but I do think it takes out. So each bad guy also comes with a drop. So this is, they list 10 parasites earlier, and then you get another 10 parasites here, 1 drop for each bad guy. So fun ones, the hamstring worm comes from the chariot, which makes sense. Each one makes sense, right? So the chariot it's got stats. It targets the lowest flesh. It's a humanoid creature from another solar system, fused at the base by a parasitic beast, creating a strange centaur-like creature. So and it's a chariot, so it's fast. There's movement, blah blah blah. So then the drop enhancement is a hamstring worm. It allows you to leave an area without taking damage or engaging as you exceed natural speeds. I love that it all is built into itself. I love Chariot. I love the stats. I love it all. I love that the drops are built in. It's just like, as you said, the name. So same thing with Hermit and some other ones. Were there any of the enhancements on these? Oh, the Brain Slug was a neat one.
The enhancement on Judgment, just made me want to be Wolverine.
Oh yeah, that's the first thing. The retractable claws. Yeah. That one's dope. The tower is a cool enemy. It's a giant beast that's just like bouncing around inside, coming for you. Death is this is one of my favorite pictures in the entire book. Like I really enjoy this. It's this black cloaked creature with this like fucked up face in this very like fleshy looking background. It's fantastic. Vigor 45, resilience 18, attack 33. It's a beastie. It targets the lowest vigor volunteer, which sucks because you're already the lowest volunteer. It says this is, and I love that a lot of these are volunteers become enemies. Yeah. A volunteer with a long black cloak, squirming worms extending from beneath the hood, long skeletal fingers extending from beneath the cloak as it tries to push them into the orifices of its victims, liquidizing and consuming their internal organs. I love that one. And the enhancement is a vampire cyst. When you get a 1 during any nerve check, you heal 1 vigor per 1 that you roll.
See, this could have just been called Vampire.
Oh, the bad, yeah. Instead of death, it could be a vampire, and then it would be a vampire cyst is what you get. Yeah, I agree with you completely. So now we're getting in.
It's just cool,
right? So now we're getting into checks, right? So this is another thing where this could have been right underneath the stats at the top, and we're on page 25 before you get to the checks that you're making. Like I feel like there needs to be a little bit of a reorganization here where like you need to put all the character generation stuff at the top or all the rules together or stuff. The fact that there's character creation stuff, and then exploration stuff, and then bad guy stuff, and then checks, and then like I think there's a little bit of a reshuffling needs to happen here, because you shouldn't be almost at the end of the rules before you even know like why nerve matters, you know. But anyway, so there are checks. An area may ask you to make a check involving one of your skills. You roll an amount of d6 equal to your skill and check the result. That's a core mechanic for a lot of your rolls. Is you have a skill, you roll that many d6. There is a decayed check, which are exactly the same as a regular check. However, once they are rolled, they cannot be performed by another volunteer. So basically, you can't just have a bunch of people trying to do the same check over and over and over again. Once someone does a check, check's done. There's a nerve. So nerve checks are different than normal checks because you use a D2 or you flip coins, and that represents the nerves within the Leviathan, right? So tails, the sphincter or whatever, the door is locked, it's closed, or if you roll a 0 or if you get a 0, it's listed multiple times for however you want to make a binary choice happen. Flipping dice, rolling a D2, whatever. Tails is closed, heads is open. 0 is closed, 1 is open. So when you come across a locked sphincter or something else that uses nerve, mark it on your map with a 0 coin. This is a nerve lock. The area will determine a direction, up, down, left, or right, that is locked. When you make a nerve check, you must first be at a place to spike an exposed nerve or raw flesh labeled as a spike point. Your volunteer uses a series of small needles to press certain nerves within the flesh of the Leviathan, attempting to open internal valves or twitch organs for the group's advantage. To make a nerve check, flip an amount of coins equal to your spike skill. For each 1, you may open or unlock any amount of nerve locks within the Leviathan that you have come across equal to that amount. Some locks require more than 1 nerve to unlock. For each 2 zeros, increase the Leviathan discomfort by 1. All of that, I think, makes pretty good sense. You use your spike to make nerve checks.
I feel like it all works.
Yeah, it works, and I think it's well explained on this one. I think this is one of the ones that's really well explained. You get, as soon as you find a spike point, you can roll a number of D2 equal to your spike, and then you can open any number of doors anywhere in the Leviathan equal to the number of 1s you roll. So it doesn't even have to be in the same room. If you roll 5 1s, you might open the door in front of you, and there are 4 other ones you can open because you're hitting a nerve, and the nerves go through the entire body. I really like that you can unlock other areas than where you are, right? But for every 0 you roll, every 2 zeros, you increase the LD, the Leviathan discomfort, by 1. So you're like, because you're hitting a nerve, like that makes sense. I really love this mechanic. It does say, though, if you get all 0s, you attract one of the Nemesites and must survive the encounter inside its stomach. You roll a d4 to determine which Nemesite you attract. Okay, so basically, on nerve checks, you could have to fight a big bad that's going to come for you. So the next page is the Nemesite. It almost looks like a kiwi coming at you. The picture does, like in the water. You know what I'm saying? Do you see it?
I was thinking a duck, but yeah, a kiwi, I guess,
because it's got a longer bill, right?
Yeah.
Great piece of art here, though. There's it's a red, as I just described it. It says Nemesite, 1 of 1. Nemesites are extremely dangerous, ancient parasites, older than anything else. They have hide stronger than any weapon. And once they appear, they pull the prey into their hunting grounds within the walls of the Leviathan's guts, isolating them. That is one thing that, like, there's a disconnect in the lore there. It doesn't really matter mechanically. Above it says the Nemesites must survive. You must survive inside its stomach. Right? You attract one of the Nemesites and must survive the encounter inside its stomach. My assumption there is you're pulled into the Nemesite's stomach. But then when you get to the next part, it says it pulls their prey into their hunting grounds within the walls of the Leviathan's guts. So are you in the Leviathan's stomach, or are you in the Nemesite's stomach? I don't know.
I think, hold on. I think that I think the hunting grounds is the Leviathan's stomach. because it's the Nemesites. That's the Nemesites hunting ground. I'm looking this up real quick because I want to see. What the fuck? I was gonna look up Nemesite real quick because I was curious. That's not a thing, really. I could have sworn it was.
Well, there's a nematode.
Right.
Yeah. Well, as you look that up, it says when you roll all zeros on a nerve check, you fight a Nemesite that suddenly emerges from the flesh of the convulsing Leviathan, drawn by the moon to the walls, fighting from inside. So again, fighting from inside the Nemesite's stomach alone. Roll a d4 to determine which, right? So it says Leviathan's guts, but then it says, but I also think Leviathan's guts might just be like the whole Leviathan. So the Nemesites pull you into its stomach. So then you're fighting it from inside, right? Instead of flesh dice, you roll a spike dice for all attacks against a Nemesite. The same goes for defending. Damage taken from the Nemesites is dealt in fatigue instead of vigor. If you defeat the Nemesite, it spares you fleeing, and you are free to return to the Leviathan where you last left it. If you fail, the Nemesite infuses you with a horrible parasite that affects you in a way specific to that Nemesite. It then sicks you up and retreats into the Leviathan, stalking for the prey. So it definitely pulls you into the stomach. There's a whole different mechanic to fight your way out of the stomach, where you're using spike to attack and defense. And damage you take goes directly to fatigue instead of vigor. So that's what happens. So it's a whole different mechanic. Yeah. And then there are the Nemesites record here. But again, this is the part that I was not a huge fan of. It's got suit names for the Nemesites, so that you fight the Jester, the Ace, the Queen, or the King. I also don't get why the Ace isn't either the first one or the last one. It's weird that it's number 2 instead of like number 4. Not that that matters that much, but
and the Jester
again we have
Jester instead of a Jack.
Yeah, instead of a Jack, right?
It said no Jokers in the beginning of the game, and I was like, wait, what the fuck is a Jester doing here? Because I thought they were the same thing.
You shouldn't really use a deck of cards and then call something a king and a queen, like within the thing. It does start to get confusing. There's too many different variants of like how things are called, and now the Nemesites use like kind of the names from like a card deck, but then the known enemies use the names from a tarot deck, but you are using cards. Yeah, it would be better if these were just names. But again, we get a spread of what I assume is maybe like a quick reference of like all the information you need, but then you get 4 pages with art that already have all the information you need. The Queen looks very similar to the Death one. I think it's almost the same background, might be just a little different. But just picking one real quick, let's go to King. I love this piece of art here, but King, it says Vigor 101. Resilience 13, attack 50. So they're beefy boys. The targets don't matter because you're inside its guts. A small, angry, rotund Nemesite with a large crown-like growth on its purple body. Its hunger does not match its tiny size. Creatures swallowed by it fill out its tiny rubbery body as it stretches over them like a big purple sack. If this defeats a player, they reduce their max vigor by 3d6. But having 0 max kills you. So there's no drops for this. It's just a survival thing that happens. But if you win, you get spit up and it runs away. If you lose, you get spit up, but it infects you with a terrible parasite. So you don't, and it only attacks your fatigue. So Nemesites really can't kill you unless it's like parasite kills you, but it definitely fucks you up for the rest of the time that you're going to be in here. So
yeah.
Those are Nemesites. And then Returnal, which is also the name of the game, is it not? There is it's another header here. Returnal. The ambergris haul you obtained was worth more than its weight in gold, but the people who hired you could always do with more money. You may replay Bilge with the same map and new old volunteers, a new map with new old volunteers, and if playing with the same map, the Leviathan discomfort is reset to 0. And any previously looted deep intestine is now empty. More ambergris must be found somewhere else. And you will be compensated with a reduced sentence. So that is, at 32 pages, pretty much the game.
Yeah.
Right? And everything else after this is the area guide. So we'll just do a quick explainer of what that means when rolling. Maybe, I don't know, pick a random thing and say what comes in the room. But basically what you're going to get now is diamonds, and then it says 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all that stuff. But as we go through, there are great pieces of art. There's great layout on here too, which I really enjoy. There's multiple colors here where like there's a light green, there's more of like a bright green, there's red. There's things where it says, like in this one, for example, there's one that says 4 plus LD, it's in red. If you're already going to mark LD in red in the area guide, mark LD in red in the explainer of the rules. It makes it a little bit easier. And it says here, I love this one, they used to send children.
Nice. We love that.
That's what children... That's what they would do. Yeah. But the art throughout the rest of this whole section, it says, do not volunteer. There's a lot of little like lore chunks throughout that are really, really fantastic. Yeah. But again, also here, there's a whole page for diamonds, Jack, Queen, King, and Ace. So to calling the Nemesites those same things are confusing.
And also calling it Jester and not Jack when you use called Jack. That it's just so confusing to me. But I do want to say the yellow highlighted on crunch check of 16, God, I wish that was throughout the entire game, because it's perfect for like highlighting, like even when we were talking about attack versus you attacking versus an enemy attacking, red versus green on the dice roll. I'm fine with all the dice rolls being green and all of the Leviathan discomfort stuff being red and all of the checks being yellow. I think that would be just perfect. It would be perfect.
Yeah, I think the layout stuff throughout the whole thing here at the in the area guide is easier to understand than a lot of, because you also get, as I said here, this kind of like a almost like a teal green as a color that's dropped in here too. There's areas where it talks about lose 1 fatigue and 1 fatigue is red. There's no reason not to expand this all the way throughout, because if you're going to use the same font, I think the dice, I think this is the dice ones are using a larger font size. Yes, Christian just said in the chat that the font does not read well. It does not. We discussed that earlier. But it's
the font for the dice is actually a different font. That's why.
You think so, or do you think it's just a different size, or like a bolded version of it?
No, it's a different font. The font for the dice
because
the font for the dice is a totally different font than the font in the rest of the.
Yeah, you can tell by the 0, especially because it actually looks kind of 0, not like a square, because the corners are chopped off. You're right, 100%. Do not volunteer. So basically, it goes through the entire deck of cards. So diamonds, hearts, spades, clubs. And then 2 through ace, they're all listed as different rooms. When you got up, did you grab I also love this piece of art real quick. This is it's less pixelated than all the rest of it, and it's a very kind of like tenderly, spiny, veiny, nervy chunk. I really enjoy this. This is on page 40. You got up and grabbed the deck of cards?
Oh, of course I did. Let me pull one out.
What did you pull? I'm sorry, there's even like a pinkish purple that is used in some of this stuff.
I was like, what the fuck?
Oh my gosh, use this, this throughout. Oh, and there's another font here too. Hello, can you give me something sticky, tasty? And that's a whole different, much more legible font. I don't know.
So on my Texas Chainsaw Massacre deck of cards that I have here, with Leatherface running out of the room after killing the first victim of the movie, 8 of hearts. Let's see what we got.
8 of hearts. So if there was some hyperlinking or bookmarks for this, we could just jump straight to hearts. This is diamonds. Oh, that's right at the beginning. After diamonds, we get hearts. So we'll scroll down to 8. So this is generating a room. This is back to that like piece of art that I was talking about just a second ago with the nervy bit. So it says, an abandoned camp has been set up in this small, narrow area. Tents hammered into the fleshy ground. There's seemingly no sign of a struggle, and a contained fire is still smoldering, but no sign of life can be seen anywhere in the camp. You found a safe area. That's great. Nice. So you can rest up. Yep. So, and everyone can roll to replace their vigor and fatigue. You guys can chat, hang out, do what you got to do. So you pulled a rest area. I'm just gonna scroll randomly down. Let's pick one that's got like so we're doing a king here. It says, a gigantic room filled with orbs suspended from the ceiling via fleshy tubes. They do nothing but pulsate with the beating of the Leviathan's heart. However, moving into this room causes the flesh to pulsate increasing the Leviathan discomfort by 1 each time. If the Leviathan discomfort is 10 plus, the orbs split, revealing 5d20 enemies. I like that. So there are different variations on the rooms based on Leviathan discomfort, and all of that. Man, there's a whole page here of lore. I'm not going to read it at the bottom, but it is. I think it's a letter from a volunteer back. I'm hungry, lost, alone. The screams of the other volunteers echo down. Read that. Go get this on Neon Rot's thing. Then there's the angered Leviathan areas. This is another section. Once the LD hits 10, only track rooms from this table, regardless of the card's suit. They are often extremely dangerous. So from now on, after you hit LD of 10, when you pull a card, you only look at this table, regardless of the suit. So flip one for me.
Let's see. I got a 5 of diamonds.
So diamonds doesn't matter. We just got 5. A pulsating billowing area. Yeah, a pulsating billowing area, almost like the inside of a huge fleshy sack. Parasites tumble around as strong as winds blown in and out from a void space above. Passing through this area increases Leviathan discomfort by 1 and infects anyone moving through it with 2d10 parasites. It's a lot of parasites.
Yeah.
Your parasitic purity.
This section would have needed a clarifier earlier in the game as well that this exists. Does it?
When we talk about Leviathan discomfort, it talks about only rolling on the Anger Leviathan tables
you're right,
chart or whatever.
That's you're right. My bad. I totally forgot that was there.
The very last page I really love. It's pretty much the Leviathan's heart. It is the ace when you roll on the Anger Leviathan table. Refers to the heart's ace, then spawn 1 times 10 death. So 10 deathy known enemy deaths come for you at the Leviathan's heart. Love this page. The art is fucking fantastic. Then we get to a character sheet here. I think I can flip this in. I can't. I can rotate this to the right. There you go. Volunteer record: name, flesh, spike, crunch, vigor, fatigue, parasitic purity. Leviathan discomfort is just listed as a box, and your parasite's infected. You just fill in the chart to the right. Pretty simple, straightforward character sheet. I love it. I think it looks great. It's got the suit of the volunteer on it, and yeah. So that is. Let me rotate this back to the way it was. And then the final page in the book, it says created by Neon Rot / Willow J, art by Neon Rot, some assets used from Shutterstock on our license. The font used are listed here. And it says, thank you for buying my flesh, Neon Rot. It's got the great logo here that, is it Chowcalypse? Chaocalypse?
I think it's Chaocalypse. I think his name is Chow.
Yeah.
If I remember it.
Yeah. Awesome person, great artist, been doing a lot of really amazing stuff on Twitter. Definitely go check them out as well. But they did this graphic here, Neon Rot snagged it from them. It's a great logo. Looks great. And then that is it. There is a back page here. Do not volunteer, and there's another little breakdown of kind of like the story for the back page, and that is it. That is the whole thing. And it runs right at 60 full pages. So, Chaocalypse, says Christian. I think awesome artist. Yeah, fantastic. A lot of really cool stuff. They'll just be like, hey, I played this game and then did this dope piece of fucking art. You know. Yeah. They also are doing. We just talked to the guys from Ecomofos. And they're doing, or he is doing the solo rules and did a beautiful cover for that. So if you back that project, go check a recent update and you'll see their work on the cover for that. Looks really fucking dope. We're going to kick over to the review though here and talk about this. So as we said, with 60 pages, even though a lot of it is like the area guide, there's still a ton of art, layout and all that throughout that entire section too. And actually, as we both said here, I think the layout through the area guide is better than the area through the rest of the game. And I wish that they would, put that up through the rest of it. So as we said at the top, the metrics we tweaked a tiny bit here. Not the spirit of it, just what we've always done, but I think we tweaked the rules a little bit to make it a little more easy for us and for you guys. So for those that don't know, we do rate the games on 5 metrics to try to quantify something. And they all go to 10 points for a max of 50. First is art and layout. So that's the visuals of the book. It is the art, how it's used, quality, quantity, and the layout as in how the layout looks. And then we get to usability. Usability is for things, as we talked about, like is the font readable? Does it have digital navigation tools? Does it have if it's physical, does it have a bookmark? Like if it's got maps, are the maps readable? Does the character sheet work? Like all of those things. It's just how usable the book you have in your hands is, and the rules are easy to read. There is a rule set, which is if it's an adapted rule set, how well is it adapted? If it is a new rule set, do we like it? Is it good? Does it mechanically make sense? Originality is kind of a broad spectrum of kind of all of those things combined, mixed with lore and everything as well. It's kind of the, I don't want to say the dump stat in a bad way, but it's kind of like where the rest of everything kind of falls into. And then value is bang for your buck. What are you getting for that? And like digital tools, are there generators? Is there third-party licensing? All that crap. So that is our metrics. Art and layout. So visually layout and the art. What are your overall just thoughts, not numbers, just thoughts?
It's great. I don't think I love it, but I like it a lot. I think that some of the color, well, I mean, I shouldn't say color choices because it's really just mostly red, which is cool. But I do think that some of it gets a little washed out or kind of blended in for someone that has really bad ADHD and struggles with reading. Some of that stuff became difficult. However, I feel like a lot of that washed out stuff is more of the flavor than anything. So that's kind of like also like a little bit of a pass. It's like I don't have to read that if I don't want to. It's not really that important. But the art for this is fucking incredible. I love all the pixel work. It is amazing. The style overall like is just, it's really good. I like it a lot. Like I really do.
Yeah, I think, if we were doing a zine review like we did with BDSM, like the vibes on this are fucking phenomenal. I love the pixel art. I love the whole overall ness of the game. Like it just the whole way through, it really gives you a sense of like what they're trying to do. All of the enemy pictures are fantastic. And just I mean it screams 90s video game, and sure. I really love that. And there's a solid amount of art through the entire thing. I mean, as we said, there's like, just for enemies there are 10 of the known enemies plus the Nemesites, and there's art every couple of pages on top of that. I mean, I really love it, and I do like the layout visually. Black, white, and red are like my favorite layout styles. I think for readability, as far as just like the fact that usually when there's text, there's not stuff behind it. Because sometimes you'll see people put stuff on, or like the colors aren't whatever. I think that layout, like visually layout, that works great. Usability wise, more colors would have been better, but we're getting to that in a second. I don't know. I really like this a lot. I think that is one of Neon Rot's definitely standout stuff in their work, is that this pixel style art is fucking awesome and phenomenal. So
very cool.
What are your thoughts on the art and the layout, numbers wise?
Numbers wise, I would say, I'm like,
so
thinking like probably a high 7. It's kind of where I'm at. I feel like like I said, I don't love it. I like it a lot. It is a little difficult for me to parse, but it's very cool looking. So I guess that may be leaning more into usability than anything.
Yeah.
But I we are missing like, well, I don't, yeah, we're gonna get into usability. I'm getting confused here because we changed the scores up, the scoring system up a little bit. Fuck it, we'll just say I'm gonna go with like, I'm gonna say like a 7.5, and if depending on what you say is what I'll adjust
Yeah.
accordingly.
No, I like that. I think that's about where we are for art and layout. I think is right around a 7. I really enjoy it, and just visually, not talking about usability at all. I really enjoy the style. I think it's unique to. I mean, this kind of thing exists. Someone in chat just said the art style feels like H.R. Geiger made an NES game. That's a great description. I think I would fucking use that as a quote in the book. But I really like that. I think 7 is a solid number for that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we've given, like Mouse Ritter got a 7, and we love the art in that. But and Varn got a 7 as well. 7 is a good one. Anything above that really starts to stand out, like in a crazy way. It also might tweak a little bit now that we've made layout more, like the visual layout of it, more of an emphasis in this section too. But we'll see. So the game score numbers, score 1, that is a 7. So 7. Usability. I think this is where it's going to take one of the biggest knocks. I think we've said this numerous times that the body text is hard to parse. Yeah. As also someone with ADHD, I'm a huge fan when people bold keywords. And if you're gonna bold a lot of that stuff, and by bold in this, it's really just use different colors. And there's like 6 different colors used in the area guide area, but not nearly as many used in the actual bulk of like the first 30 pages, which is the core rules. I don't know why, because there's things that you don't even realize are keywords until you keep reading, like Leviathan Discomfort is LD or target or things like that. That could very easily just like use that same format that's used in like half the zine for the top half of it. I mean, there's also there's no table of contents. There's no like actual bookmarks. The bookmarks are just page numbers. There's no hyperlinks. There's no digital tools whatsoever for that. I think this is not something I would deduct, but I think something that would be great would be a map page that has those 4 boxes at the top listed and things like that. But as far as, I think usability takes the biggest hit here, just as being, I think the vibes are being put before the readability of the zine. 100%. And that's a choice. Yeah, that's a choice. I would pick a similar font that is a little more readable, maybe not so squared off, maybe a little bit more delineation, a little bit more errors for bold, some more colors. Thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree 100% with you. Like, I had a difficult time reading this. Not because it was not interesting or fun, but because it was just hard to fucking read. And once you get to the area rooms, like I'm on page 44 right now, and I think that's a great example of what the whole book could look like. Now that might be a little too much for the entire rule set, but like there's even a fun font on there that isn't used in the rest of the book for like the a voice you hear. And I just think that's super, it's a cool page. That page right there, I'm like, that's good. The body text font, though, I mentioned this before we went live. I just think using something like Roboto or Helvetica or something that's square and sans serif would have worked so much better, because it would have still matched the feel of what you were going for here, but it would have just been so much more clear on the page. And I guess to pull in from my comment on the art and layout style about the washed out things, I think that some of the colors of like the
the little sideways lore bits and stuff at the bottom. See, I don't mind that that's washed out. I think that's kind of the point. I think it's supposed to be like little Easter eggy, not Easter egg.
I don't want to
not
knock
quite.
it for that, but it is also at the same, like, it's not necessary for play, but at the same time, I do want to read it. And if it's already in a difficult font to read, and then it's like partially faded away, like it's a style choice, which is fine. I'm not going to say that you made a person made a bad decision here. But man, not having the table of contents, the choices, I had some issues with like the choices of where rules were placed and explained. I feel like there needed to be a core mechanics page that just explained how the most basic how you play the game on one spread. That way you kind of understand like what is happening here. The usability, the understanding for me between like the tarot suits and all that stuff was just really difficult too. So yeah.
I think the last thing I had on my list of critiques that I had written before was a quick rules page. Like a lot of pages will have it as like the last spread in the game will just be like, here's every stat, here's every check, here's exploration, here's everything, just broken down without like all the explainers, but just like a quick reference for it. I think really not having the table of contents at the beginning for something this big, and not having, like you just said, like the quick rules page at the bottom for like a quick explainer. Also a lack of examples of play. I think for some of the stuff that's a little bit harder to parse, I think it either needs to be explained more or needs to have examples of play. I would personally like both. You know, that is where you start to get to a little bit more usability with your book and a little bit less vibes. I don't know if that's taking away from the vibes a little bit when you like go into like a narrative thing or whatever, but I personally find it really necessary.
Yeah.
Especially because it's a GM-less mapping game, so some people might not have played similar games to this, so it would be easier to have that kind of stuff in there. So, I mean, honestly, it would not change much to the zine, but would increase the usability a lot to make a couple of changes. But overall, this is one of the more difficult ones I've read, in the sense that, like, the copy also needs, as we said before, like a line editor. There's run-on sentences, tense changes. So, not to beat this up a little bit, but I definitely think, genuinely, all of this would be fixed with just 2 passes from a good line editor, like Christian Terrell or something like that. You know what I mean?
I mean, and to be fair, I do want to. I should clarify this as somebody who hires editors. They're not cheap, so this could be a financial situation where somebody just doesn't have money for an editor, and honestly, that's fucking fine. Like that's acceptable, really. Like, but yeah, like it's if you want to hit certain points in like get your text up to a certain level, it's kind of you have to do a work trade or something like that. You know, that's just kind of what you gotta get.
I know that they are, and we'll link to that. They are kickstarting this for a print version. Nice. I do think part of those Kickstarter funds should be used for an editor. I think it would just elevate this to fucking phenomenal. Yeah. Versus, I mean, I really enjoy. And I know we're beating it up a little bit here on usability. I fucking love this game. Like, I can't wait to play it.
I'm excited to play.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
This is more of like, it's so good, I just wish, versus like trying to beat it up. It's fantastic. But anyway, so usability, I mean, I'm honestly at like maybe a 5 realistically. I mean, it's rough.
I know that 5 is like the starting point here, but I was going to say 4 for the usability aspect, because I honestly would not be able to play this as is, like without really like going through it and not playing it while playing it to figure out how it works, so that I could kind of parse it and like make notes and bookmarks in the pages and stuff. You know, that's how it would be very difficult for me to play it as currently stands. But
yeah,
I know.
I mean,
I'm
okay. No, I'm okay. It's a little harsh, but I think I'm good with a 4 too, because realistically, like we said that we would go from 5 points for each metric to 10 points, so there was a little bit more of a spread, and we've only given like one thing below a 5, because 5 is considered pretty much like the most bang average You know what I mean? And I do think readability in this is below average. Like, I do think it's difficult. It is difficult. So I think 4 for this is good. Okay, on to stat that will definitely be higher, rule set. What are your just general thoughts on the rule set?
I really fucking like the rules.
Yeah.
I at first glance, I was a bit overwhelmed with thinking about how the things, like when you first start reading the book and you see like all the things you need, like I mentioned before, like, deck of cards, a roll of coins, like all these different dice. Like I'm like, shit, what is going to happen here? And reading through it, it kind of, as things are added, it feels initially like, oh shit, another thing. But then it's like, oh wait, this isn't actually that complicated, and it kind of makes sense. Like, I kind of understand what's happening here, and then like, but like, I also feel like all the rules like really just complement each other really well. I feel like he spent a really good amount of time thinking about how all these different things work together, which I think is something that's really difficult to do with a game that is one, a solo game, or a GM-less but also solo game, and also two, one that has so many different moving parts that can all interact at one time. So I think that he did a fantastic job with the rules, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that, and that's what I'm talking about, where we're, like I said, we kind of beat it up on usability, but it's because the game is so good. I really enjoy this so much that I really like wish some of the usability stuff was better so that we could be elevated into fucking fantastic. Because I love the rules. I think it's interesting to play a GM-less game already. We did get a chance to play Liminal, which has a similar core-ish, which Neon Rot co-wrote with Alexei Vela, which is another fantastic game that everyone should go check out. They are also kickstarting an expansion of that called Back Rooms, Alexei Vela is. So you want to go check that out over on Kickstarter as well. But yeah, I really enjoy the rules a lot. I would love to play this. I would play this solo. I would play this with a group of people. I would love to, as we did with Liminal. I think this would be a fun, quick, easy one to do on the Adventure Archive on a stream, or we could all just get together and do the same kind of fun with that. I think Jason could do a really fantastic job with like pixel art to make it really gross and fun. But yeah, I really enjoyed the rules a lot. I think I'm a solid 8 for this, easy. You know,
Easy.
I think
yeah. I was even gonna
8.5
and see where you landed, but I think eight is good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think 8, because only because we do it subjectively compared to everything else. The ones that we have for 9s, I think, are just, you know, we've never given a 10, so a 9 is basically a 10. So an 8 is basically a 9, and that's how much we enjoy this game. So like, I think this definitely deserves an 8. And the rules are fucking fantastic, and it's yeah, they're great. Really enjoy them a lot. And as you said, one of the things I like a lot is how very clear they've been all thought about in a way to feed into the system.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing in it do I go, you don't really need that, as far as like the rules go. So,
yeah. No, 100%.
Yeah. Originality. You know, I haven't played a ton of GM-less mapping games. I have a couple. Again, Liminal is very similar to this. But I think the lore is really fun and interesting. I think some of the bits and pieces kind of exist out there in the world, but kind of not in this specific way, which I really enjoy. I love like the gross 90s body horror, sci-fi horror aspect to all of it. Haven't really played a ton like that. Like in tiny bits, it reminds me a little bit of Slipgate, but that was more of like a Quake. Yeah, that was more of a Quake vibe, more of like a demonic, less body horror kind of vibe than this one is. I would love to see this as a game, like one of those old 90s games where it's like a little window and you have all your stuff on the side, or even as a movie would be amazing. I think the lore is not a lot. It's like 2 little pages, but there's so much depth to it. I think it's really fantastic. So originality wise, I love that. I think the rules have a lot of really solid originality into it. And the art style, I think, is super fantastic. You don't see enough gorgeous pixel art. So all in all, originality for me is going to be pretty high because there's a lot of parts in here you see tiny bits elsewhere, but not in this way, and this well done.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that the concept is a bit is not super original. The not I shouldn't say the concept. The very basic underlying premise, I guess, of the dystopian future 30th century Starship Troopers kind of thing, where we're sending all our people out in space, whatever. But from there, it gets pretty individual. And I like where he took it, and it has a lot of very interesting and unique aspects that are very referential to things that I love and things that I know, but none of them feel like, other than the only thing that I can think of that really just directly makes me think of this is Jabu Jabu's belly from Ocarina of Time. But that is really the only thing that I can think of that is so similar to this. Yeah, I mean, I think originality is high up there for me. Yeah.
See, I'm not a Zelda person, so I don't know Zelda.
Then fuck you.
Yeah,
Jabu
right?
Jabu's belly is a dungeon in Ocarina of Time, and it is literally the inside of a whale.
Yeah. Oh well, I mean, yeah, we also got. We also have, the Bible. With
true.
Jonah, yeah. But if it was in the future on a moon of Neptune and sent there by a trillionaire as a prison volunteer. Yeah, I'm like a solid 8 for this. Like, I really enjoy the way that all the parts got put together on this, and it's really, really enjoyable.
Yeah, I think 8's good for me too.
Value. So the thing is, right now, this is a score where I was a little bit, are we going to do a zine? Are we going to do a full review? Because the book is, as we said, getting kickstarted to do a print run of it. So, and a lot of times when we do full reviews, it's because we have the physical book, because that factors into the value that you have for it, because you don't know, like, you could have an amazing game and it has like a crappy print and you're just like, or you could have a game like Death in Space where it's like $35 and it feels like a fucking special edition copy with foiling and like 3 fucking bookmarks and shit. So, but I assume it's just going to be zine. I assume based on the quality of the previous prints that they have done before for their games, it's going to be similar to that. So right now for value, what we have is it is $11 on itch. I have linked the itch page here in Twitch chat, but for those in podcast land, the page is neon-rot.itch.io /bilge, but you can just find Bilge, or you can literally just Google Bilge Neon Rot, and it is the first thing that pops up, because that's what I did every single time. But it is $11 for this. I think that is easily a solid price for this. I mean, we're also, it's hard because it's like value. Obviously, as a consumer, it's nice for things to be cheaper, but as a member of the community and stuff like that, people need to charge more for their games. They're good and they deserve to be. I think 11, solid on value. There's not really anything more to it right now. This is a score that once a Kickstarter drops, I would be happy to go back and raise. There's not a lot to rule here for value, so probably at like a 6. I think that would increase a little bit, maybe if there was, like I said, like a mapping page or things like that. But I'm probably a 6. I mean, it's slightly above average. It's a decent price for 60 pages of a really fucking fun game. So I'm really solid on a 6 for that.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. I think that adding value to this would be adding like a downloadable black and white grid for your map drawing, and like things like that you can add, just tack on for free. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying.
I don't know. You look confused, so I got worried that
no, the formatting of this thing got weird. I must have dragged it accidentally. So that's just, for those in podcast land, I had a confused look on my face because the 6 was way too far to the left. So yeah, I think 6 is good for that. And like you said, like any addition will raise this. Like, you know, I also think that I don't know if you just said this because I completely fucking brained out on that with my ADHD. This God, I want to see this as a video game, but this could easily be pumped into a generator. That would make it super fun and easy. Like the whole deck of cards thing could easily be chucked in, and you could have like a room, you could have a character generator or a room generator, just like a click of a button to do stuff. God, that would be amazing, and that would shoot the value through the roof. Adding a map tool would go through there, any type of tools like that. And my assumption, it's not listed here either, is there's got to be, I assume there hopefully would be some type of third-party licensing. I don't think there's any mention of licensing in this at all, like a CC BY 4 or something like that, or anything. So I think being able to make content for this would be really fun. You could think of a million parasites for this. You can think of a million bad guys for this, like more fun rooms. I could definitely see making a little expansion for this. That'd be really cool. So that would all increase the value. But for right now, kind of like slightly better than bang average for that would be a 6. So the overall score here, so we're looking at a 33. And I think that feels low for how much I love this game, and it's just because it takes such a big knock in usability, you know? I mean, if it fixed all the things that we talked about and it was more like a 7 or 8, you're talking about a game that's more like a 37, 38 points, which is kind of where we hit with a lot of games. And then if you add the generator tools and things like that, bump that value up to like an 8, you're talking like a 39, which puts you in the top like third of all games that we've reviewed here on the show, as if we're some type of fucking like anyone that matters in this, as if the score matters to anybody out there.
You're the only show that matters to me, Ryan.
Well, I appreciate that, but just so everyone knows, we're just a bunch of fucking schmucks with probably terrible opinions, so don't take this to heart. And we say this a bunch of times, the total score is an aggregate, but when you're looking at games, when you're looking at zines and stuff like that, if the score doesn't matter to you, if the art and layout doesn't matter to you and the rule set's more important, look at the games that have 8s and 9s, you know, for the rule set. If the value is what, you know, sticks out to you, look at the games that have that. You don't have to look at the entire thing overall to really get a zine that you love. Like some of my favorite games we've ever reviewed are not in the top like 5 or 6 as far as the scores go, because objectively looking at it is different than subjectively looking at it. So it's a 33, but I think the game is better than that. I think it just comes down to the usability and formatting that could be really picked up. Overall, at the end of the day, fantastic fucking game. Super glad I bought it. Can't wait to back the Kickstarter. Hope there's a bunch of other stuff with it. Would instantly back anything from Neon Rot. I think they're a fantastic creator. I think this is a fantastic game. I think that hopefully as part of the Kickstarter, they can put a line editor or copy editor on this project, fix some of the low writing, fix some of the issues with readability, and this is a fucking phenomenal, fantastic game that I can't wait to back.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think that's it. That's what we got going on. So, wrap up for Disaster Tourism real quick. What do we got coming sooner than later for that? Besides, you know, like the first copies of Guild out in the wild.
Hey, what's that? I don't know what that is. So we got Guild getting ready to I'm hoping this is the final one. Print proof coming in for the third time. Because I keep having issues with Mixam and the fonts that we chose, but I believe that all of the issues have been fixed, and I'm expecting my print proofs to come in on tomorrow or Tuesday. And if they're good, I'm putting the order in for the books for the Kickstarter. And then after that, you can expect to find them on the internet to purchase. You can buy the game digitally currently, and if you do from my web store, you can get a coupon code kind of thing for when the print is in stock. And then we've also got Dead Horse print proof is on its way in as well. And as soon as I get that, I'm going to put the orders in for those. You can not pre-order it anymore, but it's not in stock yet. Order it on my web store. The pre-order was a 3-week only thing where you get the PDF free. So now you can still technically pre-order it, but you're not going to get a pre-order bonus kind of dealio on the web store. And then I want to talk about it, Christian, but I don't want to say it yet. We have a new skirmish game coming out, and I'm not going to say what it is, but it's super fucking cool. So yes, and then also Adrift Off the Islets of Langerhans is in stock at spacepenguin.inc. That is a mothership adventure, the first in a series of adventures that I'm writing for Jarrett over at Space Penguin Inc. It's a super cool adventure to explore the depths of stress and panic that you can push your little crew characters at the table for. And what else do I have going on? I've got some shit.
I got two here because I already got my print from Space Penguin. That's right. I ordered it the second it dropped, but I also get, can I show this one off?
Oh yeah, totally.
Because I got a signed copy from our tertiary co-host here. It says promo number 1 for the weekly scroll. So we got the number 1. Oh, you sent me one of those a while ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what's going on with Disaster Tourism. Definitely want to check out all that stuff. DisasterTourism.games, Deadhorse.pub, fantastic stuff from our host here, Kirby. Here on the show tomorrow, we are going to be doing an actual play of Farewell to Arms Redux with the guys over at Rivethead Games. It is kind of like that World War Merkborg game. Looks absolutely fantastic. Can't wait to do that. Asterlish and Tyler. You can find a previous interview with them talking about it here on the show. And on Friday, I will be sitting down with the writer of a very fun adventure. I will promo that a little bit more as the week goes on. But there is a fun, interesting bit that's going to come from that. And I'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow at the end of the show. So if you're listening, and you're not live, you probably missed it. But watch the next episode and see the actual play with the boys over at Rivethead Games for Farewell to Arms Redux. That's all we got here on the show. We have updated our link tree. You can find linktr.ee/theweeklyscroll. It's got all of the links at the bottom that I never remember to say, as well as, if you're listening, that we are adding a submission form for people that would like for us to check out their games, or you have a project that you'd like to kickstart. No 5e, and that's it. So check that out. Buy this game. I think it's fantastic. Definitely back to Kickstarter, and we will see you all later. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye.